You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk and John Iadarola with you guys. It's a Wednesday. Every day is special here at the Young Turks. On Monday, we had Bernie's town hall after the show. On Tuesday, we had election coverage after the show. John's got an update for you on that. And it was, at the end of the day, a pretty good night for progressives.
Yeah, which was exciting.
Yeah, if in the middle of the election coverage you tuned in, you might have thought this is not going to be a good day for progressives. But by the end, all of a sudden, here comes Kara Eastman and the others from behind, and a lot of good victories to report. That's coming up a little bit. In Anna's hour, I have some mixed feelings about a Trump thing that somewhere you'll get mad at me, that'll be fun. A famous entertainer is arrested because he's black. Okay, that's my thesis, we'll see. But then people fight back, regular Americans fight back against racism in a couple of viral videos. It was fascinating, and I hope we get to the very last story. Sometimes we don't, I'm gonna keep it real with you. We're the only show in the country that keeps it that real. Because at the end of the story, there's a really interesting story that's a sign of the times. That I hope.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, the problem with the stories of the fighting back against racism is I keep being told that fighting against racism actually pushes people more to the right. And so you shouldn't do it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's the big argument now, is that you're making people join the alt-right by fighting racism.
Okay, so we should just sit there and take it.
You should surrender.
I see.
That's what Dems haven't tried yet.
Oh yeah, if only the Democrats would learn how to surrender.
Yes.
All right, so obviously, and tonight, of course, not only the usual Rebel headquarters postgame, which are all terrific. Oh, finally in the postgame, I can tell you guys a story about a Republican Trump voter that I ran into with a super interesting twist at the end of that story, okay? And old school tonight, old school, just Ben and I, okay? So that you guys are gonna love that. tyt.com/join to become a member, get all that programming. And also, of course, our app on the App Store, just TYT, get it. You can watch or listen anywhere. John, what's up first?
Before we go to our main stories, I just wanna briefly mention two things. One is breaking news, one is, I guess, semi-breaking. It was a couple of hours ago. But it was expected that today we would have a vote in the Senate on restoring net neutrality, bringing us back to where we were under President Obama. And indeed, the Senate did vote, and net neutrality won 52-47. The Senate voted to reinstate the 2015 net neutrality rules, sending the measure to the House. Every Democrat voted to reinstate, along with Republican Senators Murkowski, Kennedy, and Collins. It will now go to the House, where nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen, but it did pass the Senate at the very least, so that's something.
No, that's important breaking news.
It keeps it in people's consciousness, lets them know that that's one of the things that's up for grabs possibly in the midterms.
So Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts came on Rebel headquarters recently to talk about this and fighting back, and maybe we could flip a couple of Republican senators, and remember they only have 51, so that's a very narrow majority they have in the Senate. And it turns out they did, and so Murkowski and Collins is not necessarily expected on this issue, but positive, and they're a little bit, tiny bit more moderate. But look at John Kennedy from Louisiana. That's like the third time he's made sense. I don't know why he awoke from his slumber and decided to be wrong only 97% of the time. So, but in this case, bless his heart. Remember, he's the guy who shredded one of Trump's judicial nominees, kept asking him legal questions where the guy's answer was.
Oh, the guy who was in no way actually, he was like the bar said, don't take this guy, right?
He was a guy who had basically never been in court.
Was he the sci-fi author? One of them was a sci-fi author.
One of them was a
made
blogger.
Me like him, I don't know.
Anyway, so look, both great news and mediocre news. It's great news because, hey, the Democrats fought back. A couple of Republicans joined them on an issue that has, you know what the polling on it is? 86%. 86% of Americans. That means a huge majority of Republicans also say, no, don't end the internet as we know it. We kind of like it. It's kind of a fun free-for-all. and we have our own blogs and sites, etc. there, and then the other normal things that we enjoy. We don't want you to change it. So because of will, including their own party, 3 whole Republicans voted the correct way. But I'll take it.
It's a wave.
Yeah, so that's the
wave.
great news that the people who are right on this issue won. A majority opinion in the country won, and a couple of Republicans did the positive thing. The mediocre news, as John pointed out, there's no way you're going to get enough Republicans in the House to agree to this. It doesn't matter how, because it's not about the voters, it's about their donors, as you all know. And then finally, even if they were to somehow miraculously do that, and don't get me wrong, keep fighting, brothers and sisters. Call your reps. Hey, it worked in the Senate, okay? So I don't, by all means, keep fighting. Red alert, red alert. Then, of course, if they both pass it, it goes to Trump. And Trump goes, okay, how much did Facebook and Google donate to me and the Republican Party, and how much did Verizon and AT&T and Comcast? Right, no, veto. And that's why he put Ajit Pai in there in the first place to do this ruling at the FC. But still, hey, the beginning of a fight and the beginning of a win on this, so great job in the Senate.
The other thing I want to mention, and I don't want to talk about this for a long time, I really don't. The financial disclosure, it does not interest me that Donald Trump submitted. And this financial disclosure includes the reimbursement to Michael Cohen for paying off the adult film star that Donald Trump had an affair with. So now he actually has given the disclosure. It is now part of the record. As a result of that, the OGE issued a note to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to look into this and to square this with prior financial disclosures that had not included these payments. So the fact that Rod Rosenstein is now involved, I'm sure Donald Trump and the right are gonna love. So Sean Hannity will probably be ranting about that tonight.
Okay, that's so breaking. I didn't read it, and the details are super important. Okay, I didn't see it yet.
The details are important and bore me, and I don't care.
Okay, well, since I don't know it and you're bored by it, we're moving forward.
Let's do 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Okay, well, why don't we turn to something that might be consequential? It really looked like Kim Jong-un was all aboard the Trump train for a while there. But no, we find out today, we are reminded that the negotiations between the US, South Korea, and North Korea are not going to be as simple as Donald Trump seemed to be pitching them to be about a week ago. And that while it looked like, well, we're going to get this summit and they're going to talk and they're best friends and people are shaking hands, people are stepping over things, everything's going to be hunky-dory. No, the North Koreans still want things and are still going to play hardball if they can, and they are doing that. First of all, the North Korean leadership has pulled out of a high-level meeting with South Korea. They have already done that, and at the same time, they are threatening to walk away from the June 12th summit in Singapore that Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump are supposed to attend. It's still quite far off, but they're saying we might not go, and they're giving a couple of reasons for that. And so we're going to break those down today. But yeah, they put out a warning on Wednesday saying that they might not go, in part because of joint military exercises that the US is conducting with South Korea. Those latest drills, known as Max Thunder, who's also a character from Mad Max, involve some 100 warplanes, including an unspecified number of B-52 bombers and F-15K jets. North Korea has described them as a provocation and preparation for an invasion of the North. But the US and South Korea have always insisted the drills are purely for defense purposes, and they've been doing them for decades at this point. Still provocative.
So here's my analysis of it. First of all, Max Thunder is an awesome name. And if you're lucky, John, that might become your 29th nickname.
Nice. Can't wait for the fan art for Max Thunder.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be John Thunder?
You know, I probably should have changed my name a long time ago. It's Cenk Uyghur, but it looks like Cenk Uyghur. I should have just gone with Max Thunder, but only for defensive purposes. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what's the reality? Offense or defense? Of course, both. Right. So mainly for defense, if the North attacks, they need to be able to defend, and the North has a ton of conventional weapons, and that. Defense against the North is going to be extraordinarily difficult. Their weapons are buried into the mountains, and it's going to be hard to rout out. That's the primary purpose. Will they then go on the offense if there's a war? Of course they will. So it's partly defensive, partly offensive training. And so I think this is mainly North Korea going, hey, you're not the only one who's volatile and can,
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Go in and out of these things willy-nilly. So you better watch yourself, okay? Because Trump says, oh, you never know, man. I'm crazy. My button's bigger than you, so you better come to the table. And this is Kim Jong-un going, oh, yeah? I'm crazy too, dog.
But I don't understand, because just a week ago, Kim Jong-un was getting along. He was visiting the South Korean president. And I was told by all these people in the media, look, it took a strong person to do what George W. and Barack Obama wouldn't do. You guys love to make fun of the fact that he's a child dictator. Donald Trump, I mean, not Kim Jong-un. But his tweets apparently have worked, and this thing is done. The nukes are gone, man. Why doesn't he have the Nobel Peace Prize already? That is what we were hearing on a daily basis. And it might well turn out to be true, but we are far away from there. They've already had the celebratory party. They've eaten all the food, and we have to clean up the mess. We're not there yet. But people were so desperate to give Donald Trump credit that they started to pretend that Kim Jong-un and the North Korean leadership are not humans or a government or a dictatorship. And for all three of those reasons, aren't necessarily going to go along in the way that we want them to.
Yeah, look, to be fair to the media, I think they were split on it. I think that they were generally congratulatory, and I get why. I mean, some of the detainees were released, and we were making progress in what I view to be the right direction. But the Republicans, yes, 18 House members submitted Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. That's just hilarious, right? To be fair, Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize when he hadn't done anything.
Oh, no, that didn't make any sense either.
So that, and he actually got that Peace Prize. It wasn't just a submission. Look, these are both volatile characters. They're both, in a sense, if you will, centrifuges that might spin out of control. So you might get to a very good conclusion because both sides think that other dude's crazy enough to do something, so maybe let's hurry up and get a deal, right? On the other hand, they are both actually crazy enough to do something, so it could spin out of control. Totally agree with John, of course. Let's see what happens at the end. Yeah. No one knows how this movie's gonna end, and God help us if Kim Jong-un or Donald Trump says something at the meeting that slightly offends the other. They both have incredibly thin skin, as you can see here. I mean, look, they've been doing these exercises since 1953, and Kim Jong-un's like, how dare they? I mean, they are so similar in their personalities and in their reactions, etc. Trump is not. It does. North Korea is way worse, and they've got concentration camps, etc. But their sensibilities, unfortunately, seem to be a little bit similar. Finally, my favorite. And there's got to be some creative person in North Korea in the government/media because they referred to this exercise as a, quote, provocative military ruckus. Somebody up there is having fun in North Korea, and they're the only one, writing things like dotard as a reference to Donald Trump. We all had to look up dotard, and that turns out to be a really fun word.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy writing, it's a military ruckus that the South Koreans and the Americans are doing?
I think Provocative Ruckus would be a good indie band.
Oh, led by Max Thunder.
Or porn star. But not
Also led by Max Thunder.
God, too much thunder, perhaps. Look, I've got a point that I want to make. Before we go to that, though, let's see. Donald Trump, upon hearing about the fact that North Korea might walk away from these meetings, this was his reaction.
We have haven't been notified at all. We'll have to see. We haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything. We will see what happens. Whatever it is.
That's helpful. We don't know nothing. We ain't got nothing. Ain't gonna be nothing. That's what I got out of that.
It's not much information there. And actually, that's a fine reaction because you should wait to see what happens. He at least didn't say I have a bigger button.
Or tweet something.
Yeah, he didn't say anything provocative. There was no ruckus there, so that's fine.
No provocative.
And I'm going to say something unacceptable. Man, he looks so orange. God, man, sometimes you look at him and like, you are literally orange, dude. That's no joke. But it's unacceptable because I accept people of all colors. And so I don't want to be bigoted towards the orange community, which is made up of 2 people, maybe 3, Trump, Boehner, and Snooki. Okay.
I don't want to alienate anyone. So here's the thing: the military exercise and all that. Their problem with that. Yeah, I totally get it. Maybe North Korea, the leadership has been talking and they realize, well, it looks like we've been giving too much. I mean, we said we were going to shut down this military site. Yeah, it already exploded and killed a couple hundred people a few months back. It doesn't really matter that we're shutting it down, but we said that we would, and that seems like a concession. Also, we gave back the 3 prisoners. This is looking like too much. So maybe they felt some sort of knee-jerk need to show that they're not going to go along with everything. And so we want you to shut down these military exercises or curtail them in the future or whatever. That's just negotiations. That doesn't really matter, going back and forth. The other concern that North Korea apparently has is how the Americans have been pitching what their goal is and how they're going to get the goal in North Korea. That goal is denuclearization, getting rid of their nuclear program, getting it out of the country, stripping it down. And that is what Trump has been saying he's going to get. That's why he's getting the Nobel Prize. And unfortunately, North Korea is saying, no, we're not doing that. And they want, it's not impossible. It's, again, negotiations, maybe with enough assurances that we won't attack them or invade them. I guess maybe they would allow it or something like that. But there are very real reasons to believe that Kim Jong-un is never going to give up his nuclear weapons if he believes that that would precipitate either an overthrow inside of his country or from outside of his country. And they are saying that how John Bolton and how Donald Trump are talking about denuclearization needs to end. And that, if you're worried about not just the back and forth of negotiations, but the long-term possibility for peace on that peninsula, that is the important part of information here.
So that's exactly right, and that's the crux of this. All this showmanship before the actual meeting and negotiations is not that important as long as it doesn't break down the actual meeting. And I think they will still have it. I think Kim Jong-un's just pounding his chest a little bit, and they both do that. But at the end of the day, and this is really interesting, the reason the North Koreans don't want to get rid of their nukes is they think that Gaddafi made a terrible mistake in Libya, that when he got rid of his nuclear program, that left him totally vulnerable. So many years later, even though America and the West had promised him that, hey, if you get rid of your nukes, we'll be just fine, they did invade him, they did bomb him, and apparently, according to reports, the North Korean leadership has watched the video of Gaddafi being dragged through the streets with a metal pipe in his rectum. And they're like, that is not going to happen to us. So we will keep our nuclear energy program no matter what. But then if that's the case, I don't know what we're meeting about. And so I know they want to do some things that are important, like turn the demilitarized zone into a peace zone and some other things. I don't want to dismiss it. Those are important and worthy goals. But if our goal is to make sure that they don't have a nuclear program anymore, then we might be setting ourselves up for failure. And that failure, if it causes further provocation, could be really dangerous. Yeah, okay.
Why don't we take our first break?
All right, guys, here's what's
updates.
Here's what's happening, guys. First break. Secondly, when we come back, progressive victories. What now? Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. All right, guys, we're back. Cenk and Anna with you guys. On Rebel Headquarters tonight, I have my first guest who is a member of the Green Party. Mm-hmm. So that'll be fun, running in California. So I'll tell you all about that, or you'll see it for yourself right after the Young Turks. All right, let's read some tweets. Oh, and guys, I'm going to go to AllisonHartson.com/go. I want to see where it is. You have it now? Can I? Yeah, let's take a quick look. No, but I saw it at over 14,000, so that's weird.
Did people take their money back?
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you know what, not buying it. There you go. Okay, 14,430 and 466. Can I see 475 individual donors by the end of the show?
Come on, give us 15,000. You guys could do it.
$3, $7, $27, 127, 1,000. I'm not going to argue with you. Okay, let's see if we can make that happen. Thank you, guys. By the way, I like the idea of giving it back to. No, I decided Dianne Feinstein being for the death penalty and for tax cuts for the rich. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, Wolf Dangler says Trump breaks the law, can we separate him from his children and detain them illegally while he's prosecuted? Yeah. The answer is yeah, we can. If you actually break a real law in the country, that is kind of how it works. Of course, he'll get bail, and of course, he's the president, so none of that will happen. But
yeah, look, with the exception of Barron, I mean, his kids probably should be prosecuted too.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
I'm sure there's some shady stuff going on there.
Oh, well, there's the Donald Trump Jr. meeting with the Russians. There's the Ivanka and Kushner business dealings with foreign countries and companies. Anyway, the mathematician says, by the way, Trump, when asked about it today, called the immigrants, quote, animals.
I just can't deal with, he said, it's so depressing and disgusting. It's hard to deal with.
He said, this is where we're at. We have a white supremacist administration. He really is. He's all right. Anyway, Sideshow Boob, which is a funny name, says, you just watch. The Trump plan will be to catch, prosecute, and voila, prisons filled with free labor.
Absolutely.
And finally, my favorite tweet, Sam Murdoch says, loving the new app. I listen when I'm walking my dog at 6 a.m. in Hanoi.
Wow.
Isn't that so cool, guys? Look, I'm excited that you guys are getting the app, and you like the app. Obviously, just type in TYT in the App Store and you'll get it. But what I love is the original vision for the show was anybody can watch anywhere, and you don't need cable, you don't need a TV, you don't need this, you don't need that. So I love that it's working. There are people in Japan, in Vietnam, in Finland, all over the world that are just watching us on their phone as they walk their dog in Hanoi. That's awesome. Spread the word. Okay, a lot more stories. What's next, Anna?
Okay. Rapper T.I. has been arrested in Atlanta, or at least a country club gated community that he lives in the area. This was in Henry County, to be exact. Now, police not only arrested him, he was charged with a number of misdemeanors, including disorderly conduct, public drunkenness, and simple assault. So what did he do exactly? Turns out that he attempted to re-enter the gated community that he lives in while he was drunk, Or at least that's what the police are alleging. Now, he apparently didn't have a key to get back into the community, to get into the gate, and he tried communicating with the security guard who was there. His lawyer says that the security guard was asleep and it was hard to get him to wake up, but a verbal altercation ensued. And we don't have very many details as to what was said, how it was said. But nonetheless, let me give you the details that we have at this moment. So Henry County Police Chief Mike Ireland said that T.I. was arrested around 4:30 a.m. after he got into an argument with the security guard. Clifford Harris, which is his real name, had lost his key and the guard wouldn't let him into the community. His lawyer says, quote, the rapper was wrongfully arrested. He claims the guard was asleep when his client arrived at the guardhouse, and it took, quote, some time to wake up the sleeping guard. At some point, they actually called T.I.'s wife to confirm that he does, in fact, live in this gated community, and she did confirm it and said, let him in immediately, but the guard refused to do so. Police were called, and he was arrested.
Okay, so as I read the headline, I thought, well, this depends. And I'll tell you what it depends on. So if you're going into your own gated community, number one, it depends. Do you have a key? If you have a key or an ID or whatever that lets you in and the guard doesn't let you in, then he's totally wrong and it's outrageous what happened. In this case, he didn't have a key. Okay, well, then we go to point number two. It depends. Can he call someone inside the gated community in the house to let him in, or does he not? And if he doesn't, and there's no one to vouch that he's actually T.I. and lives there, well, then the guard is right. And he's like, look, man, you say you live here, and I hear you, but I can't, that's my job to not let you in unless I've got some evidence of that. But in this case, he did call the house. The guard called the house. And the house said, yeah, that's my husband, let him in.
Yeah.
So why on God's green earth wouldn't you let him in? You know, it might be that that whole discussion about waking up the guard, which seems like, so what? Who cares if you had to wake up the guard? Might be a reference to the fact that because of that, they caught feelings on both sides.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
But look, I don't know if race plays a role. I don't know the race of the security guard, but it's hard not to think that it does. That if there's a gated community where a white person comes in and says, call my wife, no matter how drunk they are. You know how many times I've gotten into my own house drunk? That's kind of how it works, right? And if the wife says, yeah, let him in, and they don't let him in, that has got to be a minuscule percentage of the instances.
Yeah.
So that's what we're worried about here.
So for me, things really started to take an extremely negative turn when they called his wife and she confirmed that he lived there and they still wouldn't let him in. At that point, they completely lost me because you're right, Cenk. Look, we don't have evidence of what was said, how this all played a role. Like the simple assault misdemeanor. Why? Why was he charged with simple assault? Like, we don't know exactly what happened. But I will say this. At the point where it's been confirmed that I live in this community and you're denying me entry to my own property, that's when I get extremely angry and upset. And by the way, you're right in saying we don't know if race plays a role in this, but here's what I do know. I do know that living in any situation where you have to deal with gatekeepers, a homeowners association, any type of gated community, any type of condo or townhouse community, it is the worst situation. Do not get yourself involved because people are up your butt constantly, right? And it doesn't matter what your race is. I have that experience on a regular basis. The people living in the same area, same building, whatever it is, they question everyone, they harass everyone. They're just incredibly, overwhelmingly unbearable. And so just don't, I know it seems great to live in a gated community or an HOA situation. Just don't. Because this is what you're going to have to deal with regularly. Yes.
Okay, so, but look, if you're T.I. and you've seen the news lately that a woman going to Yale is questioned for sleeping at Yale in the dorm that she's in. The guys get kicked out of the Starbucks. They're African American, and the list goes on. The guys get called. They're at a barbecue. The cops get called on them. again, they're in the neighborhood. Why? They live there, right? And so now he lives there, and he's made a lot of money, and he's got a really nice house. And they called his wife, and she confirms, yeah, he lives here.
Yes,
and
I
the
know.
guard still says no. I think that he gets to be A, super frustrated, which is what you're saying, and B, he gets to wonder if it might be about race.
No, by the way, let me be clear. Of course, that is a potential factor, and of course he gets to wonder about it. I'm not saying that. And by the way, I also want to be clear that I'm not trying to blame him for living in a gated community. I'm just saying that, look, property owners, just people in any given neighborhood, they get insane when it comes to keeping the neighborhood safe or whatever, right? And it gets a lot worse when you're in a homeowners association type environment where people have the justification to constantly harass you or harass people that they think might be dangerous. You know what I'm saying?
Which then often leads to discrimination based on the unconscious biases in people's heads. Who do they view to be a danger? Right?
Yeah.
And so now, lastly, and maybe the most important part is, okay, people caught feelings, the guard and TI, whatever, okay, it's 4:30 in the morning, etc. The cops, when you show up, you're supposed to say, hey, does he belong here or does he not belong here? Did you call the house? Yes. Did the house say to let him in? Yes. We're done with it. Then the cops, you know what they could do? They could escort TI to the house. They could knock on the door and say, hey, ma'am, is this your husband?
Exactly.
Yes. And we're done with it. But instead, well, you defied any kind of authority, even though you're totally logically correct, right? But we're not going to let you into your own house that you paid a ton of money for, right? And instead, since you defied a security guard, we're going to arrest you. And we're going to do this laundry list of charges. And look, if T.I. was upset and he's yelling, I guarantee you the cops were like, how dare you, right?
Yeah.
But think about, why is he upset? Is there a chance that he's right? Did that ever occur to you?
I really want to continue this conversation in our members-only postgame today because I have a lot to say, not just about this story, but just, we talk about privilege a lot. And just this past weekend, I was in a situation where I literally yelled at someone in the homeowners association, right? No one calls the cops. Anyway, I'll give you the details to that because it's just night and day, the way people get treated. And I think it's important to differentiate. So we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so tyt.com/join to become a member so you can get all the post games that happen, of course, after the main show.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
All right. A gubernatorial candidate in Oklahoma is catching a little bit of heat after some posts that were made on his Facebook page. He's claiming that those posts were not written by him, basically indicating that it was written on his behalf or maybe his account was hacked. But the comments are disgusting to say the least. Christopher Barnett is the name of the candidate, and in a Facebook post, the administrator initially posted a poll about food stamp requirements and then made comments claiming euthanasia is a solution to the issue of the poor and disabled. So I'll give you some examples of the comments that were written. One said, most receiving food stamps work or are disabled. Some are, this was actually a Facebook commenter who was arguing, hey, most people receiving these food stamps do work or are disabled. Some are elderly. The response to that comment was pretty defensive, and it said the following: the ones who are disabled and can't work, why are we required to keep them? Sorry, but euthanasia is cheaper and doesn't make everyone a slave to the government. Okay, so basically, we shouldn't offer any assistance to those who are disabled. Why should we take care of them? Euthanizing them is a much better solution.
Yeah, that way they're not a slave to the government. Well, they're dead, so they're not anything, I suppose. Now, do you really believe this guy was hacked? That
No.
some random candidate in the middle of Oklahoma, there was some sort of nefarious plot against, and then the hacker wound up saying things that a lot of right-wingers not. I don't want to say all majority of right wingers want to kill the disabled, right? But have you not heard or seen right wing zealots online that say things along these lines? Well, they should milk off of us, man. And so if they are, I mean, it's their problem, and they should either go die or do whatever they're going to do, right?
I mean,
it sounds just like a right wing zealot.
No, the people in power, like the real people who are creating an economic system that puts everyone at a disadvantage. Those are the people who have successfully distracted us and put all of our attention on attacking the weak and the powerless, right? So disabled people, really, that's the enemy here? The disabled people are the ones that we should be focusing on, and you're going to advocate for murdering them? Okay.
So, and look, let me read the final quote there, and you take this anywhere you like. He says, if they can take care of themselves without government assistance, great. If not, let them starve and die. Easy as that. So he's making an argument, well, look, I'm not going to go actively kill them, but he did say euthanasia, which would allow for that. And then he's saying, well, at least let them starve and die, because every man for themselves, and I don't care about anyone else. This is the logical extension of the Republican philosophy of extreme individualism and no empathy. So they've been taught over and over again, the poor, it's their fault for being poor, the rich earned it, and they're great, and they're good citizens, and the poor are bums milking off of you. So I'm not at all surprised about the comment about the poor, but once you've lost all empathy, then are you surprised that you're at a point where some Republicans say, oh, they're disabled. That's their problem, not my problem. I'm not that guy. Okay.
Also, I'm very curious what, this man would think about, I don't know, maybe a military vet who served and put his or her life on the line to serve the country, came back with a disability and needed government assistance. Do you think that they should be euthanized as well?
Yeah, so Christopher Barnett could have made a logical defense of this, which is a staffer did it, I didn't do it, right? But that would involve throwing a staffer on the bus. If the staffer actually did do it, okay, well then you should throw him under the bus. You shouldn't have someone working for you who thinks we should euthanize the disabled and the poor, right? If you want to protect that guy, okay, well then that's on you. But that at least would have been credible. To say that somebody hacked into your account to write things that Republicans might write, you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy.
Very, very unbelievable. And so be wary of people saying they got their accounts hacked, whether they're Republican candidates for governor or MSNBC hosts.
So Christopher Barnett did release a statement about all this, so I want to read it to you just to wrap this up. He says, there are people saying they want to shoot me, they are going to assassinate me, they are going to shoot me, they are going to blow me up. I'm in this election, I'm not dropping out, they're not going to intimidate me.
I love, see, again, since there's no empathy, when he was saying let people die or euthanize them, that was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
When he gets blowback for that comment.
He's the real victim.
Then
right?
he's like, oh, but they're saying it about me. It's totally fine when I was saying it about you, but when you say it about me, I'm outraged. And by the way, he should be. Don't say you're going to shoot him or blow him up. That's terrible. Don't do that, right? So, but he also shouldn't have put out that statement. And the fact that he can't see that it's deeply problematic, and he now feels like the victim that needs a safe space. Hypocrisy at its finest.
We got to take one more break, but you don't want to miss the stories that we have coming up, including these incredible, hateful rants at local coffee shops and how people stood up for the disenfranchised.
Silver lining.
Yeah, some happy endings. Not that kind.
Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.